Time for my bi-monthly, tri-monthly video hiatus vacation. Yep, sure feels good to not produce content for YouTube.com after not producing content for YouTube.com. What is that? What is that? Can I help you? Caliban. Oh right, he kind of got swept under the rug by the giant story update, didn't he? Well, look, for once I don't have much to say. At least not yet. Let's wait until he's buffed, shall we? Okay. What? Mate, look, I haven't formulated my thoughts about him properly, okay? You can go now. What, do I have government surveillance drones following me now? God forbid I need immediate medical attention or something. Sorry, you have to wait 7 months for that. Oh, but you just remember one squirrel in your own backyard, and suddenly they're in no rush to get you your own Big Brother's giant mechanical eye. The hell is that noise? Yeah, okay, fine. So, Caliban. My mind and opinion of him is bifurcated down the middle. Caliban comes into the game as the second sentient themed frame, and yes, Rebecca, I said second. Okay, look, Revenant being inspired by an Eidolon doesn't make him any less of a sentient. Eidolons are a subspecies of sentient, in the same way that Vonvalis and Mimics are. I'm not having this war with you, I'm right, you're wrong. Anywho, Caliban was kind of pushed off to the sides for a lot of people, including myself when he dropped, as he arrived alongside a sizable update that didn't just come with a new war quest, but a slew of new weapons and, for me personally, the most intriguing Primaxes I've seen in quite a while. So he was kinda put on the back burner up until now, which I believe is fair since Caliban, well, I won't say that he can't right now, but I think he's missing some spice. I made a short first impressions video on Twitter regarding him, and unless he's been significantly buffed by the time this video comes out, and if you're hearing this, then chances are, no, he hasn't, I think I'm just gonna reiterate those thoughts here. Fleshy Beyblade here doesn't exactly get my engines going, mainly because I can't grasp how this dude is supposed to work. Let me explain. Frames are often designed in a variety of ways. Some frames have a kit in which all, or at least most of their abilities are useful. An example of this design philosophy would be Rhino. Good powers, they just aren't meant to synergize with each other. Some frames have kits with abilities that are designed to pair together, giving bonuses or altered interactions when they're combined. There's many more of these frames than the former, but examples include Gauss or Garuda. And then there's frames that are laser focused on a single power in their kit, with the rest being spice and flavors to that button, or just not being worth using. Notable examples of this being Mesa and Grendel. Now with Caliban, I don't know. My brain is still trying to figure out what D was going for, and I'm not quite sure. And just for some clarification, when I make these videos on frames, I very rarely delve into community opinions of them, at least at the start, because I don't want to skew my own personal thoughts on a frame. So yeah, there are those with brains larger than whatever I got going in my head. But for me, I really can't tell if Caliban is just in need of number tweaks, or if I'm not understanding how to properly play him. And I've been messing with this dude a lot, it's just been genuinely difficult to tell what design philosophy he follows. But if I had to guess, I think he's supposed to be of synergetic design. But my issue with that, if true, is that his synergies just aren't potent enough at the moment. They are there, but they're not very pronounced. So, what do you do with him? Well, as far as I can tell, you're supposed to create these cool and wacky no armor zones before spinning into them, whilst your other two abilities are meant to be utilities. But I'll be getting into why that doesn't really work out in a bit, and later I'll tell you how I actually play him. But first, let's cover his passive, aka Great Value Adaptation. Caliban by default is able to generate damage reduction to damage types whenever he's attacked, up to a cap of 50%. I'm not sure how I feel about this one, if I'm being frank. On one hand, you could see it as a slot saver since you get a free store brand version of one of the best survivability mods in the game. On the other hand, if you do use adaptation, then you essentially have no passive. But on the other foot, this passive also applies to teammates. And it's not even in a diluted form. They also can get a free 50% adaptation. But on the other cock, adaptation is such a common fit in builds that bonus might not provide much of a benefit. So you can see why I'm torn here. And a big reason for that is that adaptation and this passive do not play together. The game will only give you the value of one or the other, whichever is highest. Now, it's understandable that these effects don't stack. Completely fair. Have you seen what damage reduction does to a motherfucker? But I wish that Caliban, a frame based on a species whose entire gimmick is their ability to adapt, would get some bonus for running adaptation. Maybe make it so his passive converts damage for adaptation into reduction more efficiently. I don't know. But because these two effects are like trying to mix water and oil, it puts you into a weird situation. Do you accept your bootleg adaptation, or do you disregard your passive's personal use in favor of using the real deal? I don't have an answer, but you're not here for me to talk about the fucking passive. You're here for the rotates, the pirouettes, the twirls, the gyre. Razor Gyre, or as I've been erroneously calling it, Razor Gyro, is our first power. And take a while to fucking guess what this does. I've mentioned before that I'm not quite sure how Caliban is supposed to play, and I have pretty much the same conundrum here with this ability. Using it locks you into a spinning state that allows you to pump out a cum ton of slash procs, and these procs can be made more potent if you hold the fire button. And you can also use a revolutionary new feature from Canada that lets you waste all that extra damage built up by clicking the fire button. But no, it's supposed to be your mobility tool since your mobility inside of the gyre is handicapped pretty damn badly. And I gotta be blunt, forcing me to get rid of the extra damage I generated from my gyre just so I can properly move is not exactly a great feeling, DE. But you know, I wouldn't be that fussed if the extra energy that gyre demands to boost its potency was reasonable? But nope, instead, energy number go by. But to be honest, that's all besides the point, because I really don't feel like boosting gyre is really worth it in the first place. At least not on its own. Because remember, enemy armor shows absolutely no mercy. But hey, maybe it wasn't supposed to deal big damage alone. After all, it has an additional effect and a synergetic bonus. First, gyre heals you per enemy hit, which is solid. No complaints there. I too gain life essence when bled on. Second, when combined with his second power, it causes enemies afflicted to explode for damage equal to if a stale fruity pebble was thrown in their general direction. Hey, Editor Trip here. Apologies for the interruption, but that line I just said, well, it's actually worse than that, because during my footage gathering, I noticed something. Gyre doesn't seem to be properly causing explosions at all. I did some controlled tests, and yeah, you can see here that there's nothing really happening. At first, I was seeing some bigger slash ticks than what you would just get with gyre alone, which made me think that there was some sort of blast happening causing those bigger numbers to happen, until I remembered that those were just because his second power increases the damage that enemies take across the board. So the normal slash procs that gyre causes were just being amplified. This interjection that I'm doing is kind of breaking the information flow that the video is supposed to deliver, but I mean, if a significant feature is missing from a power, I feel like that deserves a pretty appropriate call out, so back to the video. Okay, so maybe gyre feels a bit on the lukewarm Mountain Dew that's been set on a windowsill for 6 months side. Honestly, if it were up to me, I'd make it so that the more energy you pump into it, the faster your base movement speed would become. After all, he's speeding up! Like, listen to the sound design! There's also some other additions I'd like to make to it, but we'll come back to that later. Next up is Sentient Brap. Oh, sorry, typo. Next up is Sentient. This is Caliban's dedicated CC, and to be honest, it's damn good, even on its own. It doesn't try to do anything stupid in a pitiful effort to stand out like some frames. It's just a solid crowd control power. Hell, it's probably one of the better ones in the game, because it's essentially a Rhino Stomp, but with a debuff attached. It causes damage vulnerability on enemies that are tagged by the shockwaves. That's extremely nice, and to make it even better, its base range is 22 meters, and it has no line of sight requirements. And it's even subsumable with no helmet exclusive downsides. But there is one tiny downside. It has an enemy cap, dictated by power strength. And you guys mayhaps or may not know about how I feel about enemy caps on crowd control powers, but to reiterate briefly,
I fucking hate it!
But for this power, I'll let it slide, because it's still solid, it just limits what builds can properly use it is all. And luckily, Caliban needs strength anyway, so sure, fine. Still pissing my Cheerios though. Next up is the squad! No, I meant to say the crew! Yeah, so lethal progeny. Yet again, I'm not sure what DE was going for here. It summons up to 3 allied sentients to fight alongside you, whilst also providing Caliban increased shield regeneration and can even give him overshields. Quite pog. But neither of these effects are super amazing. Like, I've heard split opinions about these dudes from my friends. I got some saying that they're great damage dealers, and I've had others tell me that they're useless. And if you're wondering what camp I fall into, it's the indecisive stupid idiot camp. So first, yeah, these guys do deal good damage, but because DE refuses to pour you a full glass of water, there's something that hinders these boys. Melee restrictions. You know what's fun about Warframe's ranged AI? They have the aim of an esports player who's been injected with 500 grams of Red Bull mixed with fentanyl. You know, so they don't feel the pain of their spine snapping when they twitch shot. AI is really good at shooting things, regardless of whether they're an enemy unit or an AI-controlled frame unit. And it's for that reason that these tend to be my favorite types of companions, because they don't waste too much time and can be, extremely lethal. Melee, on the other hand, I don't tend to like as much. They have to pathfind to enemies and, well, I don't think I need to tell you this, but they can't outrun a bullet. And because DE is the kind of company to serve you lemonade and then suspiciously giggle in the corner, it should probably be pointed out that these sentients aren't of the laser variety. Nah, these are the equivalent of mall cops with batons. So they have 0 range potential and must be up close to do them deeps. They do have some special attacks like the spin move, but other than that, aren't too unique. Their shield buffing capabilities are nice too, but are hardly a solid lifeline to lean on like Hildren's shield powers. Again, it's just a weird power that I throw out without any real thought. Though I will say this, can we please be allowed to summon all 3 in one button press? Is there any reason why someone would want to only have one of these dudes instead of the entire crew? Imagine if playing Necros you had to summon each individual shadow one by one. Quality of life, DE. Please. And lastly, we got Fusion Strike, by far Caliban's best power. Casting it creates a
サックビーム
that pulls enemies in at the point of impact and also strips their armor. And I didn't notice this until a few days after his release, but it also leaves an armor stripping fallout effect for enemies that wander into it. What this essentially is then, is a larva with armor strip, which is to say, this thing kicks your balls in out your mouth. It's incredibly effective. It can strip 100% armor, has great reach, and the armor strip area lasts a long ass 15 seconds at base. And hey, it has something that I originally complained that Zaku doesn't have. If enemies leave the field or the field expires, they stay stripped! My god, what a concept, DE! Anyway, because of its ability to gather enemies while also stripping them, you'd be correct in assuming that you should probably be using this ability as an opener against groups. And yeah, you do, but what do you do after that? Well, like I said before, I think DE wants you to use Razor Gyre afterwards, you know, to clean up the group that you just sucked into your mini Chernobyl. But if you ask me, use a bomb? No, I'm serious. Like, Razor Gyre does okay damage along with Fusion Strike, but because it animation locks you, it prevents you from casting multiple fusions back to back, which you will want to do in things like Steel Path, especially because, unless I'm mistaken, you can have multiple fusion fields out. So having to keep coming out of Razor Gyre, to put it bluntly, feels like passing a Texas-shaped kidney stone. And besides, you still need to spend energy boosting Razor Gyre, and then once you cancel the ability or do that stupid zoom thing, you lose it all anyway, resulting in a ton of unnecessary energy being burnt. Meanwhile, my Tenet Envoy does the exact same thing, and it looks prettier. Look at them go. I'm also free to put down more fusions or summon more crew lads without having to come out of my stupid ballerina dance. And I'm able to actually regenerate energy, alongside not burning through it unnecessarily. Have I mentioned that I hate this? Because of this, I feel that as of right now, Caliban works most effectively as a gunslinger type frame. You know the ones, frames like Chroma or Mirage. Frames that have kits that allow them to deal extra damage, but lack powers that do effective enough damage on their own to benefit from said kit. So instead, these frames just stick to weapons and just mow down everything. Yeah, Caliban is one of those. I think? But you know, we could make some changes to him if we wanted to better focus his kit around synergy. Though honestly, it just kind of depends on what you want him to play like. I mean, some people may like him in his current state, so who am I to change him? I'm not the fairy god penis of game design. But for the hell of it, here are some alterations that I'd make to him. First, Gyre needs some touch-ups. For one, Caliban shouldn't lose the damage that he dumps into Razor Gyre just because he wanted to move. So, to start, remove this! No reason for it. Remember, Caliban's tools are having to compete with his arsenal, and this is so unnecessary to have on a power that already has a number of other limitations. Second, Razor Gyre's base mobility should speed up as Caliban dumps energy into it. Again, listen to this. You hear that? It sounds like he's spinning faster, yeah? So, wouldn't it make sense if he also moved around faster? Not only is this just a logical conclusion, but it just makes the power feel better as well. The audio feedback that you're getting from this isn't matching what's actually happening on screen. It feels icky, I don't like it. Third, let's give the Sentient summons some use with Razor Gyre. So here's my idea. During Gyre, if Caliban moves into one of his summons, that Sentient will join the vortex alongside him, with each progeny adding additional effects to the cyclone. So for example, one may add an enemy vacuum that pulls enemies towards Caliban. One may grant Caliban some damage reduction, and the last one may grant the vortex adaptive damage, causing each enemy in the gyre's radius to take damage that they're specifically weak to, similar to Exalted Blade and Serene Storm's augments. I feel like these effects would give Caliban a viable choice of using Gyre in combination with a Fusion Strike and Lethal Progeny as an alternative to just using his arsenal. It also gives some much needed utility to his sentient buddies as well. Because like I said, in his current state, it's just way more effective to do a combination of Fusion Strike into a giant fucking explosion with your weapon, because being in states like Gyre's Blender mode restricts him way too much. If I haven't made it clear already, I'm not sure what to think about Caliban. He certainly functions, and he functions well enough, but I can't help but shake the feeling that he doesn't work in the way that DE may have been intending him to. I point to things like his tube being usable in Razor Gyre as pieces of evidence. It feels like DE wanted you to utilize Gyre more by allowing that feature, and okay, but yeah, being stuck in your dumb little stupid idiot dumb gyrotation isn't exactly the best idea right now, at least in my opinion. But he has some really strong points to his kit. A great CC in the form of his 2, along with a fantastic gathering, strip, and damage tool in the form of his 4. And his summons are just some nice sprinkles. But if you were expecting a frame with a more synergetic kit, well, if it's any indication, I'm ending the script a pretty long while after he was released, and I've yet to see anyone on the dev team mention that he's gonna be getting changes soon, so maybe don't hold your breath. Anyways, video's done, so back into my coffin I go. I'll be back soon, I promise! Probably Stug? I don't know.